Hello, Gene Schwimmer here. Welcome to today's vlog, which is going to be one of those vlogs where I have to rush out and I don't have a lot of time to record, but it also happens that I have a lot of things I have to get through, so I'm going to try to get through them all before I have to rush out. The reason I'm rushing out is because I moved here from New York City about a year ago, where I lived for about 40 years. And since I've been in Tennessee, I have been enjoying the mixed joy, I guess, or mixed experience of car ownership. There is public transportation in New York City, not always the greatest, but easier to get around than owning a car. So except for a couple times when I rented a car, I never had to own a car in New York City. I own one now, and I got my first flat tire. A nail went through the sidewall of my tire, and because it went into the sidewall, the dealership could not repair the tire. I had to buy a whole new tire, and that's where I have to go today. I have to get to the dealership before they close so they can put on my new $200 tire, almost 200 bucks. So let me get through this as quickly as I can, and also because I'll be talking about New York City, you have to excuse me if I say we instead of they sometimes, because I sometimes forget that I no longer live in New York City. It's no longer we where I'm concerned, it's they. I want to start out with something I have been talking about for the last two vlogs, which is that the polls are continuing to give bad news for Trump's chances for re-election. I had been focusing on, I'm not going to go into the polls today, they all show Biden ahead, as they all have, but I want to talk about the betting sites, because the betting sites, as I have said, have a very good record of successfully predicting winners of presidential elections, for the reason that they don't just give their opinions, they put their money down. So they must have very strong convictions of who's going to win. For the past few days, 3 days, I've been giving you daily updates because the average spread between Trump and Biden, the certain nominee for the Democrats, has been narrowing. Trump had been comfortably ahead. Then last Friday, the spread had narrowed to 3.8, and then it was down to 2.1 points, and yesterday it was 0.9, and today 3.0 in favor of Biden. So as you can see from this chart, the lines have crossed. The betting folks are now favoring Biden, and that's quite a jump. That is a 4-point jump in the spread. And as you can see, if you go down the list, only one betting site now has Trump ahead. All the rest of them have Biden ahead, one of them by 8, an 8-point spread in betting. Again, this is not a poll, it's betting odds. So I just wanted to share that, but I want to temper it this time with a little perhaps positive, not very positive, not a lot of positive information, but I had just said that these betting sites have a great record of predicting the winners of presidential elections. But as you can see, if you look at this chart with the arrow that I've added, that the betting people had been favoring Biden back in around March. So Biden was favored before and it turned around, so maybe it will turn around between now and the next election. Because if you look at the 2016 election, I went and I looked that up, and this was one of those cases. I just talked about their great track record, these betting sites, but they got it 100% wrong in 2016. The betting sites were so confident that Hillary Clinton was going to win that one site paid out $1 million before the election, right before the election, did not even wait for the results, and then was, in a little bit of hot water there because they had already paid out bets to the Hillary Clinton bettors, and Hillary lost. And the people on the other side who voted for Trump, they had great odds, against them. So now that Trump won, they really cleaned up. I think somebody made 100,000 pounds, which would be 150,000 U.S. dollars, something like that. So they did really well. Now another factor to add is the stock market. The stock market has been soaring. I just heard on the news that it's gone up 8,000 points in the last 8 weeks, I think. All I know is I have my own portfolio, my mutual funds and stuff like that. The Dow is over 26,000 today, and the record high was 29,000, a little over 29,000. It had gone down when the coronavirus pandemic really broke. It had gone down to, I think, about 18,000. So that is quite a jump, and not that much farther to go to hit a record. Now, the reason I mention the stock market is because, number one, it could be predicting a great economy, because the stock market is also good at that, at predicting what the economy will be a little ways down the road. And if that pans out, Trump could win. I don't see him, as I said before, winning in the popular vote, but I could see him winning the Electoral College again. Plus, I just heard today that we now have a vaccine that should be available pretty soon. Businesses are opening up now. I heard also on the news that about over 75%, I think it said 79% of small businesses are now opening, or that the businesses are opening and already, I know one major retailer is already up to 75% of the business that they were doing before the coronavirus. So all of that is potential good news for Trump. The stock market could also, in a way, be predicting Trump win, because I don't see why investors would be optimistic about a Biden win. I could be wrong, but I wanted to give you, as I have said, that's my policy, to give you all the facts. As Fox News says, I report, you decide. I don't shield you from the bad news if you're a Trump supporter in this case, but I also, if I see good news, I want to give you that too. Now, I just want to mention, I'm putting a whole bunch of links in the description today. These are all videos, short videos, too many to put up on the vlog itself, but if you want, you can go into the description and get them. Just a long list of videos, Twitter videos of just destruction, these riots. You can see what has been happening. It is really disgusting and terrible. And one disgusting and terrible thing about it is, I'm going to mention one place, all Democratic-run cities, by the way, except for two, and one of them out of 27 cities, a very liberal independent, and the other one by a Republican who I would guess would be very liberal, because it's a Republican of Bakersfield, California. That mayor. I talked about all that yesterday, but I want to mention one city, Chicago, because this shows how hypocritical. Well, you have George Floyd was killed, right? One person, but how many people have been killed since then because of these riots? And a lot of these people are innocent people who have been, I mean, there may be a case where a rioter was killed, but most of these people are innocent people. And a lot of these are police officers who did not kill George Floyd. You have stations being attacked, police stations. You have cops being assaulted. One was shot in the head. It's really awful. But I want to focus just for a second on Chicago to show how ridiculous they are and how hypocritical and how biased they are, and the media, because Chicago has been one of these scenes of these riots and these massive demonstrations. But look at this headline: More than 20 shot over 12 hours in Chicago as gun violence remains high for second week. So the week before, there were a whole lot of shootings too, but let's just talk about these 20. Where are the demonstrations in Chicago about these 20 shootings? Why are they not out demonstrating against these? Why are they not, I don't know, rioting about these shootings? And I will tell you why. Because these shootings were done by black people, probably mostly gangbangers, but it's black people shooting black people. It's a real tragedy. It comes, I think, from the dysfunction of years and years of liberalism and the bias against marriage and, well, I'm not in religion, but I'm not going to get into all of that now. I'm just saying that it's because the shooters are not because they're black, I phrased that wrong, let me rephrase that, but because they are not white cops. They are not white and they are not cops. And so you go out, you shoot 20 in 12 hours and nobody demonstrates about that. Now we get to New York. Now we get to, I guess I'm talking a little fast because I'm trying to get through this before I have to rush out and get my new tire that I'm so excited about, even though it's probably going to just look like the old tire. And I've only got 5,000 miles on the car in the first place, so the tire I had was brand new, practically brand new until a nail went through the sidewall. Anyways, enough about me. So now we're talking about New York. I just want to put, I'm not going to give you a whole lot of quotes today. I am going to give you some headlines and a video and some photos. This headline here, this is from the New York Post. Worse than war, my night besieged by looters and thugs in NYC. Now, as I said, I lived in New York, so I know New York very well. This woman who is writing this story, she has 2 kids. She lives in a residential building, but it is just off of, I think, Lexington Avenue and East 55th Street. It's an upscale area. There are some multi-million-dollar high-rise apartments right in that area. But if you go a couple blocks away, then there are also just these little 5-story brownstones that you see up and down the block. Very charming. If you saw Annie Hill, the Woody Allen movie, you saw Woody Allen and Annie Hill walking down or it's funny because when it's Woody Allen, you use his name and not the character he's playing, but you use the other characters, you use the names of their characters. So Woody Allen and Diane Keaton, Alvy Singer, the character, and Annie Hall walking down the street, and you see these charming brownstones. That's one of the things that made me move to New York, by the way. A little aside here. I was living in Detroit. Annie Hall came out. I saw the movie. I liked it so much at the time. It's a little dated now, but I watched the movie 3 times, and the scenes that I saw of New York just made me want to leave Detroit and move there. And that's one of the main things that prompted me to move. And I still think those brownstones are charming. There's a lot about New York that's not charming, but those brownstones are charming, and I have even lived in some of those brownstones. But the point I want to make is that this woman lives in one of these high rises, I think, and she said, well, there's not going to be any demonstrations, don't have to worry about these mobs. I don't live on a street with all these retail stores that the rioters and looters are destroying and setting on fire and breaking into. Well, she was wrong, and this is the point I'm getting to, because she said she started seeing people walking up and down the street, and then one crowd stopped right in front of her building, and she was scared to death. She has 2 kids, wondering, and a husband, and wondering if those rioters were going to break into the building, because all you had was a security guard in the inside. Not even a security guard, I'm sorry, it's just a doorman. You had the doorman there. The doorman on the earlier shift was staying there a little bit later for an hour. So for an hour, you had 2 doormen. One of the residents came down with a spray can of some kind of cleaner, oven cleaner or something. So, well, you can protect yourself with this. Well, good luck with that. So the first point I want to make, number 1, is you have these wealthy, upscale, liberal New Yorkers saying, well, I am safe from all this carnage. I am safe. I am in a civilized area. Well, you can see that civilization, no matter how civilized and sophisticated one may think one is, that veneer of civilization, and it is a veneer, is very thin. Once you get a mob together, then civilization disappears, and you really have to protect yourself. It really is, I could say law of the jungle, but it is when you have to recognize and exercise your right to self-defense. The problem in New York is, well, forget about concealed carry. Carry a gun, that's almost impossible in New York to get a permit, unlike where I am now in Tennessee, where I got one very quickly, and I am the proud owner of 2 semi-auto handguns, and now I'm thinking of getting myself a rifle, one of these beautiful AR-15s that I hear so much about. But in New York, they don't arm themselves. You can't get a handgun, but you can get a rifle. I had a rifle license in New York. You have to get fingerprinted and go through a whole rigmarole, but I had one. But imagine if there were, well, let me show you what I'm talking about. Here is a part of the country where they have a little more sense. Polk County, Florida. Listen to the sheriff and then come back to me.
We have received information in social media that some of the criminals were going to take their criminal conduct into the neighborhoods. I would tell them, if you value your life, you probably shouldn't do that in Polk County, because the people of Polk County like guns. They have guns. I encourage them to own guns, and they're going to be in their homes tonight with their guns loaded. And if you try to break into their homes to steal, to set fires, I'm highly recommending they blow you back out of the house with their guns.
Welcome back, and just to further hammer the point, here are pictures of people lining up outside a gun store. Something I never saw. I mean, we have gun stores here. I bought my gun from a gun store, and you walk in and maybe there are 2 or 3 people in the gun store, if that. But you can see people lined up now after these riots, just lined up. And you also notice it's all races, all ethnicities lining up to get guns because they want to exercise their right to protect themselves. The stories I have read, a lot of these buyers are new buyers, people who have never owned a gun before. I have read a story about a liberal, very liberal, who got very scared from these riots and realized he did not have a gun, and he ran out to see if his neighbor had a gun, and he is buying a gun now. He is buying an AR-15. He is now going to buy a handgun. He got religion. As a wise person said, a conservative is a liberal who got mugged by reality. But an even wiser person said that a conservative is a liberal who got mugged by reality that liberals created. As somebody who lived in New York, as I said, for 40 years, I can say truer words were never spoken. But let's get back to that video of the sheriff of Polk County, and imagine that the chief of police of New York City had come out and said exactly what that sheriff had said. But of course, chief of police of New York City could not say that because very, very few New Yorkers have guns. I mean, I had one, I had a rifle, but I'm from Michigan. I grew up in Michigan. I don't know how many native New Yorkers in New York City have, maybe out on Long Island somewhere, or maybe upstate New York, but in New York City, probably very few guns. So, and I think there's only one gun store that I'm aware of in New York City. So they should go out and demand that there be more gun stores, or that people should go out and they should line up down the street and they should buy guns. Imagine, as I said, the chief of police encouraging people to buy guns. And I think the chief of police in Detroit at an earlier time, just because of the amount of crime in Detroit at the time, had also given the same advice: go out and buy a gun. But imagine that there was then a sign on the outside, say that building where that woman was cowering in fear, and the doormen were scared too, because you can't fight a mob with a can of spray cleaner. So they were just as scared as the woman was, and one of them even started praying, just praying that the mob outside the lobby would not decide suddenly to break into the building, because there would be nothing they could do. But imagine that the people in that building, the residents, were armed, and imagine that there were a sign on the front of the building saying that every resident in this building, every apartment, has at least one working firearm, and we will defend our property and our lives if we have to. Just that sign would ward off any people trying to break in or even thinking of breaking into that building, and it would make it completely unnecessary to actually ever have to use the gun. So the title of this vlog is 2 things that New Yorkers should do. That was number 1, buy a gun. And I should say that I am giving this advice, but I am not holding my breath waiting for New Yorkers to go out and arm themselves. Unfortunately, I am also not holding my breath for New Yorkers to take my next piece of advice, but I do have some hope, and that is vote Republican. Vote Republican. I am a little encouraged because New York did it once. New York voted for, well, you could say twice. They voted for Mayor Lindsay a long time ago. He was a terrible mayor, though, a very liberal mayor. I understand, I wasn't living in New York at the time, but he was very liberal. So when you say vote Republican, I'm thinking of Giuliani. And New York got so bad that New Yorkers elected Giuliani. Now, we have de Blasio, who has been a terrible mayor. And, well, let me give you this headline. Petition to impeach Mayor Bill de Blasio gains support amid protests. There is a petition to impeach de Blasio. It's gotten already 60,000 signatures. They are shooting no pun intended, the people sponsoring the petition, they are shooting for 75,000 signatures. They have already gotten 60,000. Unfortunately, de Blasio is not going to be impeached, if for no other reason that his term ends, so in a year and a half he'll be out of there, because New York City has term limits. 2 terms and then that's it, or at least 2 consecutive terms, and then that's it. So he'll be out, and then we can hope after what happened that, I can say we, even though I'm not in New York, because we can all hope that New Yorkers will come to their senses and vote for a Republican mayor at the end of 2021, but also I'm not going to hold my breath for sure waiting for this, but what they ought to do is just throw out that whole city council, which is almost, not the whole city council. There are, I think, 2 or 3 Republicans on the city council, but all the Democrats, they should replace them. This is what you get. In fact, that advice is good for Dallas and Houston and Austin and Minneapolis, all of these cities, Atlanta, all these cities that are governed by Democrats. This is what you get. Not because these Democrats are hoping for riots. They mean the best, but their policies are all wrong. Their good intentions are never translated into actual results. Not only that, but the result, as we are seeing today, is just the opposite. But one result that I could really hope for, that would be very positive, would be for all of you to give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Share it with anybody you think would also like the video. I got a place for comments below the video. You can also put questions, suggestions for future topics. It would be great if you could subscribe. But most of all, come back and see me again. I look forward to seeing all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.
Problem that bothers me, you says Black Lives Matter. I work here part-time. Plus, I'm a part owner of this store. You said Black Lives Matter. Why don't you choke me? I'm black.
Tell him, sister.
Look what you did to my store.
Tell him, sister.
Look what you did to my store.
Tell him, sister. That's right, because I got they back. These are my
Look.
dudes right here.
Look
Good
at the
men.
things you done.
Good men.
Look.
The Black Lives Matter.
We've been here all night cleaning up. All night cleaning.
And you got black people
Now.
standing right here with them. Black
Tell
people.
me
That's right.
Black Lives Matter.
Exactly.
You lied. You wanted to loot the store. You needed money. Get a job like I do. Stop stealing. This is the neighborhood. We're trying to build it up and you tearing it down.